It started with a swipe. Lena Moore, 29, eyes still red from her last heartbreak, stared at the photo of Dr. Evan Calloway. Dark hair, warm smile, and a confidence that looked earned, not posed. His profile said, cardiac surgeon, amateur pianist, looking for something real. They matched in less than a minute. His first message wasn't a pickup line. It was a question about her favorite book. He read it too. Their messages turned into late-night calls, soft laughter filling her small apartment. He seemed gentle, articulate, a little lonely. When he suggested dinner at his home, a quiet suburb outside Chicago, nothing fancy, she hesitated only once. He said he'd cook himself. You'll love it there, he promised. His voice was smooth, grounding, the kind that makes you forget to be careful. Lena didn't tell her friends. She almost did, but stopped herself, afraid they'd tease her for trusting an app again. Evan's messages that day were softer, more intimate. He asked about her favorite wine, her allergies, the way she liked her pasta cooked. I want to make it right, he wrote. His attention to detail felt disarming, almost romantic. At 6:45 he texted, I'm outside. She looked out the window and saw a black sedan parked neatly under the streetlight. He stepped out, tall, clean-cut in a charcoal coat, his smile more magnetic in person. 35, but with the posture of someone used to control. You look even better in person, he said. She laughed, heart tripping over itself. He opened the passenger door, a small, old-fashioned gesture that somehow felt like trust. The city faded fast once they crossed the river. Neon bled into darkness, the streets stretched wider, emptier. Lena sat quietly, fingers tracing the rim of her seatbelt. Evan's voice filled the car, calm and measured, the practiced rhythm of someone who spent years making others feel safe. It's not far, he said. I think you'll like it. They talked about music, about travel, about how strange it is to meet someone who listens. His hand brushed hers once when he changed gears. She smiled, but the silence that followed was too thick, too knowing. Out the window, houses became larger, then farther apart. The road narrowed, trees leaning in like shadows with secrets. The house appeared like a painting in the mist, wide, angular, too perfect to be lived in. Its modern lines glistened with dew beneath pale security lights. Wow, Lena murmured. Evan smiled modestly. Just a weekend place. Closer to the hospital. The air was colder here. No neighbors in sight, only the rustle of trees. Inside, the foyer was spacious, marble floors echoing softly under her heels. A faint scent of cologne and something older, wood polish, maybe dust. You live here alone? She asked. Mostly, he said, then laughed lightly. Don't worry, no hidden wife or kids. She smiled back, but her eyes caught on a family portrait on the wall. Smiling strangers she didn't recognize. Inside, everything was immaculate. A fireplace flickered faintly, its warmth not reaching the corners of the vast living room. The furniture looked staged, expensive, but unused. Lena trailed her fingers along the edge of a grand piano near the window. You play? She asked. Sometimes, Evan said. His tone was almost wistful. He poured wine into 2 glasses and handed her one. To new beginnings, he said. She laughed softly, taking a sip. The glass was cold, almost metallic. She turned, catching sight of framed photos on the mantel, a man and a woman, older, smiling in front of this same house. None of them were Evan. Her smile faded just slightly. They your family? She asked. He hesitated, then grinned. Sort of. Evan showed her around like a proud host. It's not much, but it's mine, he said, gesturing to the open floor plan. The house felt curated, art arranged too precisely, the faint hum of an air purifier masking silence. Lena smiled, trying to match his calm, though her chest felt tight. She asked where the piano came from. "Old gift from a patient," he said, almost rehearsed. In the kitchen, he chopped herbs with practiced precision. "Sit. Relax," he told her. His movements were smooth, surgical. She watched his reflection in the steel of the oven door. Perfect posture, deliberate cuts, no wasted motion. For a moment, she thought, this is what safety looks like. But the longer she looked, the less it felt like that word meant anything. While Evan cooked, Lena wandered. The living room stretched into quiet halls where framed photos lined the walls. None of them recent. A smiling couple near a lake. A man in his 50s holding a blueprint. She frowned. Evan looked younger than either of them. "Nice house," she called out. "Family?" His voice echoed faintly. "Friends. They used to stay here." She stared longer. The man in the photos had a faint scar across his eyebrow. Distinctive, memorable. She traced the frame's edge, dust coating her fingertip. It wasn't a weekend home. It was someone else's memory, carefully preserved. The first sound came just after dinner. A faint thump from upstairs, deliberate enough to make her pause. "Old house," Evan said without looking up. She forced a laugh, sipping her wine, but her eyes drifted toward the staircase. The sound came again, softer this time, like a slow step. "You sure you're alone?" she joked. His expression didn't change. Positive, he stood, smiling, and gathered their plates. "You like dessert?" he asked, too quickly, too smoothly. Lena's fingers tightened around her glass. The air felt heavier now. The kind that doesn't move even when you breathe. Later, while Evan stepped away to take a call from the hospital, Lena wandered again. The upstairs hall was colder. Her hand brushed a doorknob that didn't turn. Locked. She tried again. Nothing. At the end of the hall, another photo. The man from before. The architect. Smiling beside the same door she now stood before. Evan's voice drifted up faintly. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," she called back, forcing cheer. Her heart was pounding too fast. She backed away slowly, every instinct in her body telling her not to ask what was inside. When she returned downstairs, Evan was sitting at the piano. His fingers moved gracefully, a haunting melody filling the cavernous space. He didn't notice her at first. "You play beautifully," she said. He looked up, smile slow, eyes dark under low light. "You came back." Something in his tone wasn't warmth. It was recognition, like he'd been waiting for her to test him. The music drifted into silence. He stood, closing the piano lid gently. "Let's open another bottle," he said. Lena smiled tightly. The melody lingered in her chest, dissonant, like something written to keep ghosts away. After dinner, Lena wandered again, glass in hand, pretending to admire the decor. On a side table near the staircase, a silver-framed photograph caught her eye. The same man from upstairs, standing beside this very piano, the same furniture, the same walls. But the date stamped in the corner read June 2022. "Too recent." "Evan," she called. This photo, he appeared beside her too quickly, as if he'd been waiting. "Old owner," he said smoothly. He left it when he moved. "I keep it for luck," Lena nodded, forcing a smile, but her mind replayed his phrasing, "when he moved." The man's eyes in the photo looked kind. The kind that wouldn't simply leave behind a life like this. Her phone buzzed, startling her. Unknown number. When she answered, static filled her ear, followed by a faint voice, male, trembling, whispering her name. "Hello," she said, stepping toward the hallway. The call cut abruptly. "Everything okay?" Evan asked, appearing again, drying his hands with a white towel. She forced a laugh. "Yeah, spam call." He studied her for a moment too long before nodding. The house seemed to breathe with her. Faint creaks, distant movement above. She looked toward the stairs, heart tightening. Something in the air told her she wasn't alone. Not really. When he excused himself to check the oven, Lena slipped down a narrow hallway. She found a small office behind a half-open door. Inside, paperwork, sketches, old mail stacked in neat piles. On the desk sat a leather wallet. She opened it. The driver's license read, Thomas Reed. The photo, the same face from the framed pictures. The name echoed in her mind. Reed, not Calloway. Not even close. Downstairs, she heard a soft footstep. Lena. Evan's voice floated up, calm but distant. Her throat tightened. She put the wallet down carefully and whispered to herself, "What are you doing here?" The next sound wasn't Evan's voice. From the top of the stairs came a whisper. Dry. Rasping. Too close to her name. Lena. Her pulse slammed. She turned, heart pounding, staring into the shadows above. "Evan!" she called. No answer. The air was colder now, her breath visible. A faint light flickered under the locked door upstairs. Footsteps echoed behind her. Deliberate, measured. When she spun around, Evan stood at the bottom of the stairs, calm and smiling. "You look pale," he said. "Maybe you should sit down." Her voice caught. "There's someone upstairs." He just smiled wider. "No, there isn't." Evan moved closer, slow and deliberate. "You shouldn't wander, Lena. This house creaks. You'll scare yourself." She stepped back, trembling. "Whose house is this?" He didn't answer, just looked at her with quiet amusement. She reached into her bag for her phone. It wasn't there. His eyes flicked toward her empty hand. Looking for something? In that moment, she saw it. The mask behind his smile. The careful charm dissolved into something colder, emptier. "Let's sit," he whispered, voice low. "You'll feel better when you stop asking questions." Lena waited until Evan stepped into another room, then moved toward a small door behind the staircase, one she hadn't noticed before. It opened to a dim study filled with filing boxes and architectural models. On the desk sat a hospital badge reading Dr. Evan Calloway, but the photo wasn't his. Her breath caught. The edges of the badge were scratched, as if peeled from something else. She ran her hand over a blueprint labeled Property of Thomas Reed. Every item told the same story. Borrowed lives layered on top of each other like costumes. When he returned, she was sitting calmly, glass in hand, as though nothing had happened. "You said you worked at St. Agnes," she began lightly. I do," he said. "I looked it up," she replied. "No, Dr. Calloway on record." Silence. The air between them stretched thin. He smiled, gentle again. Sometimes people use different names online. "You of all people should understand wanting a clean start." His tone was even, but his eyes were studying her reaction. She smiled back, mirroring his calm, realizing every word now was a test. After he excused himself to refill the glasses, Lena returned to the study and traced a thin line on one blueprint leading to a section labeled Private Entrance, Lower Hall. The drawing showed a hidden corridor behind the wine racks. Her pulse quickened, not from fear, but strategy. If this house was a mask, every secret had an exit. She memorized the plan, folded it quietly, and slipped it into her purse. Upstairs, faint footsteps moved again. Deliberate, pacing. The house itself felt aware. She followed the blueprint's path into the wine cellar. The door groaned softly, revealing rows of bottles and dust. The smell of oak and thyme. In the far wall, a panel sat slightly ajar. Behind it, not horror, but evidence. Men's coats, mail addressed to Thomas Reed, a set of keys. Every object whispered of a life interrupted. Lena touched the envelope postmarked 3 weeks ago. The handwriting was elegant, personal. She realized this house hadn't been abandoned. It had been paused. Whoever owned it might still come back, or never left at all. When she emerged, Evan was standing at the top of the cellar stairs. "Find anything interesting?" he asked softly. Lena met his gaze, then smiled. Calm, measured. "You have a beautiful home," she said. For a long moment they simply watched each other. The truth sat silently between them, heavy as the still air. He nodded once. "I'm glad you think so." The words were polite, but his tone carried something final, as if he knew she had already seen too much. And in that instant she understood. Tonight was no longer about charm or conversation. It was about leaving. Lena knew panic would give her away. She rehearsed her tone in her head while pretending to admire the artwork on the wall. "Could I use your restroom?" she asked lightly. Evan nodded, distracted by something on his phone. Once out of sight, she steadied her breathing and studied the hallway. Doors, windows, the faint outline of the floor plan she'd memorized from the blueprint. The hidden corridor behind the wine racks could lead her out. She whispered the route under her breath, committing each turn to memory. Calm became her disguise. The wine cellar was cooler now, its air still and heavy with oak. She counted her steps, remembering the blueprint's faint line. 7 paces past the 3rd rack. Her fingers traced the wall until she felt the seam of the panel. It opened with a sigh of stale air. Beyond lay a narrow corridor lined with concrete and a faint hum of distant utilities. She smiled to herself. The architect had left her a path. She slipped inside, heart steady, every sound magnified but contained. Halfway through, she found another door, this one opening into a guest room unused for years. Dust clung to everything. A vanity mirror faced her, reflecting her own composed expression. For the first time, she saw herself not as prey, but as the only one fully awake in someone else's illusion. She straightened her posture, fixed her hair, and whispered, "Almost there." The line steadied her more than she expected. She checked the window lock. Old, but functional. Her phone, once thought lost, buzzed faintly in her purse. One unread message. Unknown number. "Are you safe?" She exhaled quietly, realizing the call earlier hadn't been a mistake. Someone, somewhere, was tracing this house. She typed back a single word. "Yes." Then powered it off to prevent any sound. The reflection of the screen light faded from the window pane. Silence returned, but it felt like protection now, not isolation. The house no longer owned her attention. She aimed civilly masked to her protection. Before dawn, Lena stepped through the side door hidden behind the kitchen shelving. The air outside was crisp, the horizon just beginning to pale. She didn't run. She walked with quiet certainty down the gravel path until the house vanished behind fog. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself to breathe fully. She didn't know what story she'd tell later, only that she would tell it herself. And that mattered most. The world felt heavier, but real again. Morning light fell in stripes across the precinct conference room. Lena sat across from Detective Dana Ruiz, a woman whose calm presence felt both professional and kind. They spoke softly. Every question was careful. Lena described the house, the photos, the missing architect. She left out the panic, replacing it with observation. Facts lined up like evidence, not emotion. Ruiz listened, pen tapping once against her notepad. "You did the right thing," she said. The words landed gently, but didn't feel real yet. Lena nodded, knowing survival was still an ongoing process. Ruiz laid several envelopes on the table, each addressed to Thomas Reed. "We found these behind the cellar wall," she said. Lena traced one return address with her fingertip, an architectural firm downtown. The ink was recent. "So, he was still alive when someone moved in," Ruiz murmured. The idea hung between them like dust in light. Lena didn't want to imagine where he might be. only that the truth was shifting from rumor to record. She exhaled slowly, grateful that facts, not fear, would finish this story. Weeks later, Lena sat in a quiet office that smelled faintly of chamomile. Her therapist asked how she slept. "Better," she said, though her fingers fidgeted. She spoke of boundaries, of listening to instinct, of the moment she decided to leave that night. "It felt like waking up inside a dream someone else built," she said softly. The therapist nodded. Outside, rain traced the window like steady breathing. Healing, Lena realized, wasn't an ending. It was repetition. Every day, she chose to stay awake. Detective Ruiz dictated into a recorder while walking through the now-sealed property. Identity of Dr. Evan Calloway remains unverified. Fingerprints match no official record. Her voice echoed against bare walls. On the mantel, the family photos were gone, replaced by evidence tags. She paused near the piano, pressing one key. It released a note slightly out of tune. "Someone practiced here often," she said quietly. The sound lingered, a ghost of order inside chaos. Months passed. Articles circulated online about a case under investigation, but no names were printed. Lena read one headline, then closed her laptop. Outside, Chicago's first snow was falling, soft and deliberate. She brewed tea, stood by the window, and let herself exist in the present tense. Some stories, she decided, didn't need an ending. They just needed distance. Her reflection in the glass looked older, but steadier. When her phone buzzed, she smiled, powered it off, and turned away. Winter loosened its grip on Chicago slowly. The streets looked washed clean, as if the season had taken the city's secrets with it. Lena walked to work again. Same coffee shop, same morning crowd, but everything felt sharper, more deliberate. Each sound, each small kindness from strangers reminded her how precious ordinary life could be. She no longer looked for reassurance in someone else's voice. She had learned the difference between charm and calm. One disappears, the other endures. One afternoon, a letter arrived. Official. Stamped from the department. Detective Ruiz had written a short note. "The property has been reclaimed. No further activity." Attached was a single photograph of the house taken in daylight. It looked smaller now. Harmless, almost. Lena studied it, then placed it in a drawer. Some things didn't need to be destroyed or remembered. They just needed a place to rest quietly, away from reach. On Thursdays, she attended a beginner's piano class at a community center. Her fingers hesitated on the keys, then found a melody. Simple, incomplete, but hers. The instructor smiled. "You've got a natural ear," he said. Lena laughed, surprised by how light it sounded. The notes lingered, echoing softly through the hall. Music, she realized, could hold memory without reopening it. It was a way of turning ghosts into rhythm. Detective Ruiz called once more, her tone lighter. "Just wanted to check you're doing..." "Okay, I am," Lena said truthfully. "You were right. Time helps." They spoke briefly about ordinary things. Spring weather, new cases, Ruiz's teenage daughter learning to drive. When the call ended, Lena realized how comforting genuine connection felt when it expected nothing in return. Sometimes closure sounded exactly like that. Two voices in daylight, talking about everything except the past. That night, she placed her phone on the windowsill, screen dark. Below, the city murmured its endless rhythm. Horns, laughter, footsteps, life continuing. She didn't need to erase what had happened. She only needed to understand that she'd outgrown it. The reflection in the glass showed a woman steadier, wiser, still capable of trust but unwilling to trade it cheaply again. She whispered, "You're home." And this time the word meant something lasting.